back to my channel, and if you're new here, then welcome. My name is Maddie, and today I'll be sharing the books that I want to read in 2022. If you are familiar with my channel, you have seen that in the last few months I have gotten back into reading, which is great, but I've only been reading for the past 4 months. So from the months of September through December of this year, those are the only months that I have been reading. So I have not been reading throughout the whole year of 2021. But the reason I'm so excited for 2022 is that I have a feeling throughout this whole next year I will be reading, since I have gotten back into reading, and I hope to keep up that momentum. So I'm really excited for my reading journey in 2022 because I have a feeling I'm going to be reading a lot of books this year. So I want to talk about just some of the books that I have been really interested in reading lately, so much so that I want to put them on my TBR for 2022. These are not specifically books that are coming out in 2022, but they're books that have come out in recent years that I want to read. And most of these are romance books, with a few exceptions, but most are romance books. And if you know me, I'm a romance reader, so there's no surprise there. And also, before we begin, this room I'm just realizing is super echoey because there's nothing in it, so that's the reason for the echo, and I'm sorry if that's a little distracting, but we are in the process of moving out of this house, so a lot of the rooms are really echoey now, I guess. This one really so. I'm really hearing it. So let's just get into my TBR for 2022. The first book I have, this one does actually come out in 2022. It is a 2022 release. It comes out in January, and I'm super excited for it. That is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This is Colleen Hoover's next release, and Colleen Hoover is one of my favorite authors. She's definitely up there in my top 5 favorite romance authors, so I'm really looking forward to this. I'm trying to remember what it's about. I know I read the synopsis, but now I'm forgetting what it's about. But I am still going to read it because it's by Colleen. And in fact, I do plan to get to all of her books in 2022 because I really want to read all of her works. So that is my major goal, to read all of her books in 2022. Also because I want to make a guide to Colleen Hoover video. So that's why I really need to read all of her books. So that's my plan. I'm really excited to read all of her backlist books, but I am also excited to read her newest release. It should be awesome. The next one I have is the next book. It is actually the final book in this series, and that is The Fevered Winter by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which I'm super excited because when I was putting together my TBR list for 2022 on Goodreads, I saw that the final book had a title today, so that's pretty neat. My feelings on this series are very mixed. Also, the first book in this series is The Darkest Star, I should mention that, which is part of the Origin series, which is a spin-off series of her series Deluxe series, in case you didn't know. And I love The Darkest Star so much. Absolutely loved it. I thought it was perfect. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. The second book, it let me down a little because I felt like it dragged at some points, but it was still okay. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The third book let me down a lot more because I felt like it dragged on even more. There were so many inconsistencies with the plot. It just felt really boring at some points. I gave the third book a 3 stars. So because the series has been going downhill for me, I have very low expectations for the final book. I almost want to just quit this series because it's going so badly for me, but the last book did leave off on a cliffhanger, so that's why I'm not giving up on the series, because I really do want to know what happens next, but I'm just afraid that the final book is going to drag just like books 2 and 3 have. So, like I said, my expectations for this one are low, but I'm still going to read it for sure. And I really also don't want to give up on this series because Jennifer L. Armentrout, I've held her in such high regard for so long. I've stated a lot of times that she is my favorite author. I love her books, so that's another reason why I really don't want to give up on this series, because I love her books so much. So I want to read the final book. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it goes better than the other ones have. I'm really hoping that happens. The next one I have is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. So this book I put off reading even though I've heard so many good things about it, but the thing with this book is that it is so hyped. It is insanely hyped. When I came back to the book community, this was the #1 book that I was hearing things about. It was everywhere. It was even promoted on Instagram. I do go to Instagram for book recommendations sometimes. YouTube is my main source, but I will go on Instagram for book recs and see what the most popular books are on there. But this book was everywhere on Instagram. So it was so hyped up to the point where I didn't want to read it. Because I will get into these mindsets that if a book is too hyped up, I probably don't want to read it. It's kind of like a reverse psychology with me. I'm like, if you keep telling me to read this, I don't want to read it because I feel like I'm being bossed around to read it. That's the feeling I got with this book. I'd be like, social media is telling me to read this book way too much that's making me not want to read it. Because I feel like it's been forced on me so much. That's why I put it off. However, the synopsis does intrigue me. It deals with like a fake dating scenario, which fake dating books are always great. I love that trope. And it takes place in an academia setting, which is also pretty cool. So I'm still intrigued by it. I just haven't been wanting to read it because it's way too hyped up. And another thing with hyped books, if they keep getting so much praise, it puts my expectations so high. So if my expectations for this book don't meet all the praise this book has gotten, it's going to let me down. So that's why I've also been putting it off. But I'm sure it's great because it does get a lot of hype and I really still want to try it out. So I hope it's good. The next one is There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. This is another romance book that has been getting quite a bit of hype, moderately so. So because it's a moderate amount of hype, I do still want to read it. I feel like it has been forced on me, so this is a different situation. But I've heard really great things about this one, and the premise of it sounds so interesting. So this book involves a romance with just a normal girl and a serial killer. And that sounds so good to me. I'm like, wow, that's really different. So because it deals with the serial killer, I'm sure this character is going to be very morally gray, and I'm really intrigued to see how this romance unfolds. And I feel like it's going to be a dark one because of the theme that it has. But I love dark books, so I'm sure this is going to be a good one. And I've heard a lot of good things, so I'm excited to read this. And if I do end up liking it, I will read the second book in the series, which I believe just came out. So I hope this is a good one, but the premise sounds pretty cool. The next one, this is a book I put on my December TBR, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get to it throughout the rest of the month. I don't anticipate it happening, sadly. So I'm going to put it on my 2022 TBR, and that is the Addicted to You series by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is another series that I've heard so much about in recent months, which is funny because I believe at least the first book in the series came out years ago. I remember hearing about it back when I was still on BookTube actively, like 5 years ago. So this is an older series, which I find so fascinating because it's been getting so much hype recently. So I guess people are only really discovering it now, but it's making me want to read it because a lot of readers are hyping it up. And it sounds really good. It follows these two characters. They're in a romance, but one is addicted to alcohol and the other is addicted to sex. So it involves them getting, I don't know if it's getting through these addictions together or dealing with these addictions together, and it's like a toxic relationship. I don't know, but I'm going to find out because I for sure want to read at least the first book in this series, and if I enjoy the first book, I'll definitely read the rest of the books in this series throughout the next year. The next one is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I believe this is one of the only books on my TBR that isn't a romance book, at least not primarily a romance book, if you know what I mean. But this one, I think it came out this year or last year. I don't quite remember, but I've been hearing a lot about it in recent months, and the premise of it sounds really good. So it's about this girl, and she can live forever, but the catch is that everyone she meets forgets about her like 10 seconds after meeting her. And that sounds so horrible. Like, it's great she can live forever, but can you imagine every person you meet forgets about you instantly? That has to be so freaking lonely and sad. But apparently this girl does meet this guy who does remember her, doesn't forget her. So I guess we're going to be exploring their story together. This one just sounds so good. It sounds like this girl has a really lonely life because everyone always forgets about her. Like, I feel bad for this character and I haven't even read about her story yet, but that just sounds so sad. So I'm really intrigued by this one. It has gotten a lot of praise, so it should be a good one. Also, this one is by V.E. Schwab, and I have read one of her books, which is This Savage Song, the one she writes under Victoria Schwab, and that book was really good. So that's giving me even more hope that this one will be good. The next one, this is another Jennifer L. Armentrout book, and that is From Blood and Ash. This is the first book in a series. This is a more recent series by her that I've been wanting to read, but I've been putting off because it is a fantasy book and I have to be in certain moods to read fantasy. But I've heard good things about it, so that's giving me hope that it's going to be a good one. I'm not quite sure if all the books in this series are out yet. I hope they are, so I can just binge read them all instead of having to wait for the next book. So depending on that, I might wait further in the year if not all the books are out yet, because I don't know, maybe the last book is coming out this year. Let me just check really quick and see if the series is completed. No. There's still 2 more books. The 5th book comes out. There is no release date. So, I'd really rather wait until all the books in the series are out, but that could be God knows when. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I still really want to start it because I really want to get to all of Jennifer L. Armentrout's books this year, as well as all of Colleen Hoover's books this year. I probably will start this one. I'm anticipating that. The next one, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so excited. I just found out this was going to be coming out in 2022, and I about lost it. So that is volume 4 of Fruits Basket Another by Natsuki Takiya. Y'all know I love Fruits Basket, so I am super excited for this one. I also love Fruits Basket Another. And I was super happy because it was kind of up in the air whether Fruits Basket Another was completed or if there would be more volumes coming out. But fortunately, 1 more volume will be coming out. This will be the final volume, so we have that confirmation. So because it's going to be a finale, it should be a good one. I'm so excited to get back into these characters. I'm so excited to see Hajime again because I love him so much. I don't know what's going to be in the final volume, but we'll just see. Honestly, out of all of these, I think this is my most anticipated book of 2022. I mean, how can it not be? Because it's Fruits Basket, so I'm so pumped for it. The next one, this is kind of a random one because this book came out quite a bit ago, but I really want to read it, and that is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. Another book that has been pretty hyped up still. It still gets a lot of praise, even though it came out, I think, in like 2018. It still gets a lot of praise, so for that reason, I do want to read it. I read Christina Lauren's book that was Beautiful Bastard, and I just found it fine. So Christina Lauren as a whole, I don't have like a great impression of yet. But because this book has gotten a lot of praise, I have pretty good hopes that it will be good. It also deals with the fake dating trope, which, like I said, is always a great trope, one I love. It specifically deals with these 2 characters who hate each other, so it's also a hate-to-love romance. And they end up going on a honeymoon that was planned for these 2 other people that they knew. But the couple got sick, so they weren't able to go on their honeymoon, so they just gave the trip to these 2, even though they hate each other because someone had to go on the honeymoon, so they went on the trip, and for that reason they're in like close forced proximity, which is another romance trope I love. So there should be a lot of tension and angst and good stuff with this one, so I'm looking forward to it. This next one is actually going to be a reread, and that is Dark Lover, which is the first book in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. So I read this book, oh man, when was it? Probably 2018, I want to say. I started this series, and I've read up to book 3, I think. Either book 2 or 3. I have not gotten that far in this series, which you're probably thinking, I mean, 3 books, that's a pretty decent amount in a series. This series, let me just check really quick. This series is so long. It has, oh my god, it just keeps going. It just keeps going. It's so intimidating. Right now, it has 20 books. 20 books. in this series. Actually, the 20th book comes out in 2022. I mean, this is still an ongoing series. And book number 21 is coming out in 2023. I mean, I have no idea when this series is even going to end. There are so many books in it, and that really, really intimidates me. But I really enjoyed books 1 and 2. This series, if you don't know, it follows a group of vampires, and I believe each book has its own couple. So this whole series doesn't just follow the same couple. I feel like that would get pretty boring. 21 books with just following the same couple. I mean, you can't milk out a lot of story with that. So I believe each book does serve as a standalone book. So even though it's a long one, I'm still intrigued to read it because I did still love the first few books that I read in this series, but I do need to reread the books that I already read because I read the first book and the second book so long ago that I forgot everything. So hopefully when I start this series now, I can continue to read the rest of the books in this series, but there are so many books in this series that time will only tell if I'm able to read them all. I don't even know if I'll be able to read all the books, but I will try my best. As long as the rest of the books in this series are still good, I will definitely try. Maybe I'll be able to read all 20 books that are out so far in this series in 2022. We'll just see. The next one is a book series that I've been talking about so much lately. I've been putting it on, 2 monthly TBRs within this year. I've been putting it on so many TBRs and I'm not getting to it, but I really want to. And that is the Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas, the first book being Corrupt. I still really want to read this series, but I keep not being able to get to it. I just need to start it already. So I will definitely be reading it in 2022 at some point. I really do like Penelope Douglas. Some of her books aren't as great as others are for me, but I still like her as an author. She's an author who writes dark romances, so for that reason, I'm very much into the content that she writes. And this is one of her more popular series. It gets a lot of hype, so for that reason, I'm thinking it's going to be a good one, so we'll just see how it goes. And finally, the last book I want to start in 2022 is Him by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy. So I specifically chose this book because it is written, or at least co-written, by Elle Kennedy, who has quickly become one of my favorite romance authors. I absolutely love the Off-Campus series and the Briar U series, which is 2 series that she wrote, so she's becoming a favorite, and I really want to get to hopefully all of her books within next year. I think that would be awesome. But the next one I want to get to that is co-written by her is this one. This one is actually an romance, which I hardly ever read romances. So this will be something really, really different for me, which I think will be great because it's always good to read something different out of what I usually read. So I feel like this will be a good one because of that. And it's pretty highly rated on Goodreads. It has a 4.44 rating, which is outstanding. So because of that, I have a pretty good feeling it's going to be good. So we'll just see about that. And Serena Bowen, I've never read anything by her, so I don't really know what her style is going to be like, but Elle Kennedy's writing style will definitely be familiar to me. So that is it. All the books that I want to read in 2022. I hope I can get to them all. Maybe by the end of 2022, I'll go back on this list and make a video to see if I read all these. That would be kind of cool. And I'm pretty sure there's books that I have left out on this list that are books that I do really want to read this year. I just forgot to mention them. So I'm sure this list will keep growing, but these are my main books that I want to read next year for now. Let me know the books you want to read next year. I would really like to know. And if you've read any of the books that I mentioned, let me know how they are, because that would also be really good for me to know, and I'll know which books I should prioritize to get to as soon as possible out of these, so please let me know in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more anime-related videos and book-related videos. And if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, those links will be in the description box, and I'll be back really soon. Bye!